I have learned that listening to what people say and being your authentic self, I feel like is the most key to the communication. And like don't bullshit people. Just say what you mean and mean what you say and make your words be valid.
Alrighty, I am here with my great friend, Mark Walters. How you doing?
Good, good.
Thanks for being on my podcast.
Love it. Appreciate it.
We're here in your office.
Yep.
Here at Living Canvas Tattoo. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I thought you would be wonderful for this project that I'm doing. Wanting to know how we can communicate better as human beings. You are a very well-known tattoo artist.
Appreciate that.
And you're communicating with people all day long. I mean, do you even have an idea of how many people you've actually had an intimate conversation with?
Oh God. I feel like tattooers are like therapists. Like people like trauma dump on us on a regular basis. And I feel like I've been doing this 38 years now. And when I was younger, I used to take that information in a different way than I do now that I'm older.
Yeah. You've had such a diverse journey from growing up in Hong Kong,
Yep.
right, and England to becoming a cornerstone of the Tempe community through your tattoo artistry. How have those early cultural experiences shaped your approach to art and connecting with people?
I think I was really blessed to. Not a lot of people know like my history growing up. Born in England, moved to Hong Kong when I was really young. Moved back to England to go to boarding school. My family moved there, and then my family lived in Hong Kong as well. And we'd commute back and forth Hong Kong. I think the living all over the world, traveling the world. Luckily, my father used to travel a lot and would take us on a lot of trips around the world. And I think as a child, like communicating with people like all over the world gives you a little bit different of a sense of maybe who you are as opposed to just being born in Arizona, raised in Arizona. Not that either one is better or worse, but I think culturally, if you have a little bit more accessibility to the world, maybe you're a little bit better of a communicator. I would say I thought I was pretty good at meeting people and communicating with people, but I've recently learned that that's not the case.
We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Living Canvas Tattoo has been a staple in Tempe since 1993.
Yeah.
I graduated in 92. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Making it the oldest single owner tattoo shop in the area.
Yeah, in Arizona, I think right
in
now.
Arizona.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start this venture? And how has the tattoo industry evolved over the 3 decades?
Man, that's a long one. So I came here from England, and my mom is an amazing artist. My sister's an amazing artist. My family is just art driven. Like I just come from an art background. I was an artist when I was a little kid, like whether it be music or art or drawing, or I just, as far as I can remember, I drew. And so I wanted to become an architect and a designer. That was kind of my goal in life. Raised the way I was, tattooing was not in the cards. I didn't even know anything about it. The only thing I knew about tattooing was living in Hong Kong. The sailors would come into port, and the tattoo shops were down by the port. It was like seedy, and it was like kind of that that kind of underworld area by the strip clubs.
What a great entrance into it. Wow.
So it was like, to me, like it just was like Popeye had a tattoo, and it was nothing that I ever considered. And then when I came to America, I went to high school. I graduated from high school, and I was going to study architecture and design. Went to school for it, and because I came to America straight from school in England, the education in England is way higher than the American education. So I was pushed up pretty quick, and I graduated high school really early. I was young. And when I went to college, I was just got so burned out and fed up, and I was just kind of partied a bunch, and I kind of got in with my friends and skateboarding a lot. Like that was kind of my thing. And but I was still heavily in the art, drawing, writing all the time, writing poetry, writing music. Um, and then I was introduced to. Well, let me back up really fast. My good friend Evan Thompson at the time was getting tattoos. We were 16, and he was getting tattoos, and I went to a tattoo shop with him, and the guy that tattooed him was like this big scary biker with a gun. And
that was a tattoo shop back then.
That was a rainbow tattoo on
Wow.
on Camelback and like Second Street.
Not Arizona Avenue.
No. But so I went a couple of times with him, and I was like, man, that's so cool. And I actually was interested in just the art part, like looking at the flash on the walls and stuff, and not really about the tattoo process, but just the art. Like,
Yeah.
And back then it was just like you picked off number 6 on the wall and you got that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
old school. And then he got tattooed by this guy, Ernie Gosnell. And then Ernie and I just kind of became friends, like strangely, like in a weird way. And I started kind of like leaving school and going to the tattoo shop and hanging out. And then that hanging out turned into just spending more time drawing for him and giving him more stuff. And then it just evolved into like this apprenticeship. It was never like stated like, hey, I'm gonna teach you and you're gonna apprentice. It was Ernie, Frank, and Larry D. And it was a really, really well-respected tattoo shop at the time, which was Peter Tattoo on 14th Street in McDowell. That was in 1988.
Wow.
And the shop, Peter Tattoo at the time, was like the biggest name in tattooing. Like I was unaware, but he had like 7 shops all over, and he was a very well-respected tattooer. He got murdered a year before I got into it. So I never met him, but I did know his wife, Diane. She ran the shop, and I just started spending more time there and got into the industry, and then spent over a year there apprenticing, learning. And then I was like, some things happened and I ended up leaving the shop, and Ernie left the shop as well, and kind of dabbled in Mesa. That we had a friend who owned Fugitive Records. It was a record store, and Ernie opened like Fugitive Tattoo in the back of the record store, and I tattooed in there. That's Corey Adams had that. That was in like 91.
Wow.
And then
I remember Corey.
Do you?
Yeah, the Nile.
The Nile.
Yep.
So he had Fugitive Records on Mesa Drive and Main Street. And so we tattooed out the back of there. And then I came down to Mill one day with a friend of mine, and I was like, man, a tattoo shop down here would absolutely kill it. And Tempe had never had a tattoo shop, and they wouldn't allow it. And so
isn't that wild?
They just wouldn't have it. Like, so at the time there was only 12 tattoo shops in the whole state, from Tucson to Flag, just all over. So there was 12. Now there's 950. So there was only 12, and Tempe was like dead against it. And so I just kind of set my sights on making kind of a little bit more. The tattoo industry in the beginning of the 90s took a turn, and like people started seeing like more like musicians and athletes and all these people getting tattooed. So it was socially starting to get more acceptable.
It sure did.
Right?
It sure did.
And people were getting it. And so I was like, I'm going to open a shop that's like more publicly friendly. It doesn't have the stigma of like dirty and underclassed. And like, so I found a building here on Mill and dug my heels in, and I fought the city for a year to get in, and they were like, no. And we were like, yeah. And we had to make all these concessions for them, and which we did, which actually it's interesting because we just celebrated 31 years.
Wow.
And the mayor came down.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The mayor came down. I tattooed the mayor.
What?
And they gave us a
Corey.
So I tattooed Corey, and they gave us a proclamation giving us our own day in the city of Tempe, which is super cool. But I was telling him the story about how we had to make all these concessions, saying that you can't be within a certain amount from another shop, and you can't be backed up to schools, churches, neighborhoods, and all that stuff. And at the time, it seems so unnerving to me to have to do all this. But now, 31 years later, those things are still in place, and we don't have any competition because the neighborhoods have grown
Yeah.
and things have changed.
Yeah.
And because they're still in place, it ended up helping us throughout the years. And I was just too young to understand that, and who would know? You know what I mean?
Well, you were trailblazing too
Yeah.
at the same time.
We definitely trailblazed. Well, we opened, and then
They had to learn from you guys.
well, we
at the end of the
opened.
day.
We worked with them about the rules and regulations, and the mayor just said, like, on our interview, on a TV interview the other day, like, we were the people that work with him, and not him specifically, but the mayor and the city to pass the regulations and rules. And throughout the 31 years, we have a really great relationship with them. And they call us, and we go and we meet with them about regulations that they've heard of, so
That's fantastic.
it's been good.
What a journey, man. 30 years. And I do remember that, man. I remember when tattoos took up. I've got one right here on my arm that I got on Arizona Avenue, probably in 94. You can't tell what it is anymore.
No, that's what happens. Yeah. It's such a different world.
It's gone. Your specialty in large-scale Asian influence tattooed is renowned. I looked online, man.
Thanks.
You really don't know what your friends are doing until you're like, it's like a prophet isn't known in his own town. You know what I mean? It's the old saying,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're renowned. But you also embrace a wide range of styles. How do you balance staying true to your artistic roots while adapting to diverse client needs and trends?
I think you have to be versatile. Like, so my coming up, and I try to tell this to everybody that I talk to about tattooing, is like, and all the younger people that I mentor or I talk to, or like younger artists in our shop, is like, I didn't start doing big Japanese stuff or Asian influence stuff until I was like 10 years into tattooing. Like, I did in the 90s, I tattooed everything. I mean, I did every cartoon character you can imagine, tribal. I've been through every stage of tribal, Celtic, cartoon stuff. Like,
how did tribal get so bad, dude?
The tribal stuff was, but it was. But it actually helped me for doing Japanese.
Like everybody was getting it.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Japanese has a lot of like heavy black saturation for the backgrounds and stuff. And I think doing all that tribal over the years really allowed me to get better at that stuff. But I show them, like, we have walk-ins come in. I do walk-ins. I do a bit of everything. So although I do mostly do large Japanese stuff, and that's what I'm pretty far booked out at doing, I'm open to do whatever.
Cool.
But the problem is like, my weight is a little bit. We just have better artists than for somebody to wait 2 or 3 months to get something when we have an artist that could do it next week.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me as a business owner
it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Gives them the opportunity as well, which is beautiful.
I'm all about the growth of the artist in my shop, and I think that sets us apart as a shop as well. Is like, I'm not like, we're just a money grab shop here. Like, I want all my artists successful, and the more we feed them with great art and the more they do, like, the better it is for everyone, Yeah,
you get the morphic field going and everybody's jamming.
Yeah. Nothing better than a busy tattoo shop with everybody working and the buzz. Awesome. There's like a buzz in the shop.
Yeah. It's just the same vibe as a skateboard sesh.
Exactly this. It's literally exactly the same. People get stoked. The people walk around. Oh my God, that's so good. Like, same thing.
Yeah, that is awesome. So we share a love for skateboarding.
Yeah.
Having grown up hitting the ramps and contests in Arizona during the 80s, how has the skateboarding culture influenced your life, your art, and the way you approach challenges?
God, skateboarding was my life, man. I just lived skateboarding. I loved skateboarding so much. If you would have told me that I'm 55 now, I would be skateboarding still. Like, I don't skateboard that much anymore because I have really bad knees. But man, skateboarding was just, I think it influenced my life by just the camaraderie of friendships and just the hours and hours at the ramps. And like, in the 80s, it was all backyard ramps, and like, somebody would bail and get hurt and we'd all take care of them, or like, somebody needed a ride, or they broke their board and you'd give them board, or just like, the camaraderie of skateboarding was something that I never had growing up, and I think I really kind of needed it. Now that I know a little bit more about myself, I really thrived on that tight knit, that and kind of like the punk rock, kind of like all of it together.
Yeah.
And I think Rob, like AZPX, Rob Locker,
Yeah.
really still, even at his age, like encompasses that. Like
100%.
even to this day, like
100%. He's
like
a cornerstone.
he is the
of the
cornerstone.
state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that like camaraderie, and like we would I tell people this all the time, like I would literally go skate at 8-9 o'clock in the morning. I would leave the house. I would eat like, I mean, I'm sure you did it too. You'd have a big gulp and a fucking hamburger and you'd skate all day.
Yeah.
How did I stay hydrated?
I know.
How did I live?
I know. We'd get the biggest cup at 7-Eleven
Oh
or
my
Circle
God.
K. Yeah. Yeah.
And you just eat crap.
Yeah.
And you'd skate all day.
Seems like Jack in the Box was in there a lot.
Yeah. Anything. Well,
there was no Chipotle.
No. There was nothing healthy. I always think, I think back now, like.
But we would just burn it right off, man.
Oh, dude.
We would inhale it and boom, it would be gone.
But I somebody just asked me the other day, like, oh, we used to skate, like, you used to just, like, how'd you stay so hydrated all day when you'd skate I'd skate all through summer.
And I remember having the half gallon water.
Yeah, but even that, you think, like, how did I even go out and do that all day?
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
I remember when it was 100 and what was it, the record, 122?
Oh, 122.
There was a group of us that went. It was like me, Cody Boat, others, and we skated the parking garage under Scottsdale Mall.
Yeah.
Remember that long curve?
Yeah.
I'll never forget it, man. Yeah. Just being like, just sitting at the bottom, just dying. And just,
so hot.
Just pouring water on myself.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And then getting home, and then, your parents are like, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's 122 out there.
I think, I mean, that was skateboarding, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of like ties you into like who you are today. Like you still skate, like I skate still. I mean, ever since I took down my ramp, I don't as much, but I go the wedge and cruise around. And, but I think it just allowed us to be like a little bit more freedom. Like it wasn't like, I didn't have to go to full, I was never a stick and ball guy, sport guy. So, like, I just wanted to go skate, and I wanted to go to, like, we'd skate all day and then go to punk rock shows at night.
I know. Every weekend. Like, just so that, yeah.
Mason Jar. Yes. Yep. Exactly.
All those places. So, yeah, I remember having a blast skating your ramp.
Yep.
What's it been, 10 years? Has it been that long?
Time is flying, it's got to be close to that.
Those are some great times. How do you see parallels between the creativity and freedom of skateboarding and the creative process of tattooing? So you just led into that.
Yeah, I think those two are so intertwined for myself. And I've never really, I did an interview with this guy, Jamie, named Jamie, and he's a skater and he's an amazing tattooer. It's on my Instagram and stuff. And the parallels, I never really put them tightly together, but when I sit back and look and people bring it up, it's just like so intertwined, right? The freedom to create, the like when I'm tattooing and I'm drawing something on, like I just got done drawing on this half sleeve on this guy, and I draw it on and it's unsuccessful and I don't like the drawing, and I wipe it off and then I draw it on again, and then I like a bit of it and then I get part of it, but I don't get the other part. So it kind of parallels like skating a ramp, and you're like, man, I want to learn this trick. And you learn a piece of it, but you can't get the second part. And you're like, God, I'm so there. And then you're just like, grind it. And you're just like, oh, it's so frustrating. And then when you get it, it's such a stoke to get it. And that's like finishing a tattoo sleeve. Like you just work on this sleeve that takes so long, and you watch it grow and grow.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then you see a finished product and you're like, oh, fuck yeah. Like that thing's so cool. And that's like, right? Like, I mean, how many 100%. Times have you, I remember you at my ramp trying frontside airs, big blasted ones, and just bail. And then you land one and you're like, oh my God.
Then you got it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same.
It's the reward. It's like a reward mechanism in the brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that endorphin. Like, and
100%.
That's how I feel with tattoos now. Like I know a lot of tattooers my age. I see a lot of stuff I'm 55, been tattooing 37 years. I see a lot of people on the downside of their career, like, and a lot of up and coming new guys, and people don't use social media and stuff. But I feel like I'm still just as stoked. There's a lot of guys that still are not stoked on tattooing, and they're like, oh, all this like young kids bullshit, whatever. Like, I'm busier than I've been. I get new clients all day, and I'm still stoked like I am to go skate.
That's
I mean, the
amazing.
tricks are
That's
different,
amazing.
but the parallels of the two are so intertwined.
What's funny about this interview is like you're answering the question before like the next list of questions.
Really?
So that was the next question. Was like how do you keep, you've been doing this for 30 years, how do you keep it fresh? And you just explained it so great. That's, and what I envisioned in my mind is the customer that you're working with, and you just finished the piece for that customer. They're stoked, and they can tell if you're happy with
Oh
your
yeah,
own artwork.
yeah,
And to see the artist
yeah.
happy with the artwork that they just put on them, that's awesome.
Yeah, I often feel like sometimes I need to take a step outside my body, and I need people to check me sometimes, because like I feel like it's blatant on my face. Like if I'm not happy with
Wow,
something,
interesting.
like if I'm tattooing you and I get done, and it happens plenty
Sure.
often, and I get done with a section and I sit back and I look at it and I'm just like, oh, like that is not pleasing to me. Like,
Yeah.
or like to the customer, like they'll never know the difference. Like they're stoked on it. They
But
love
if you're
it.
stoked,
But
they're gonna know that.
but I feel like the ones that I'm not super stoked on, it's so readable that I almost have to put on like a, but the ones that I'm genuinely
Yeah.
stoked on, I feel like they can just read it immediately and they can see it. And that's for me, like when I get done with big pieces and stuff, I feel like it's a breakup. Like I'm like, man, I'm not going to
That's
see
so
this guy. I'm not going to see
interesting.
this guy again. And I always tell people, like, maybe I'll do one arm and then I'm like, what are we doing the other? And they're like, oh, I'm going to wait. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, I guess call me sometime.
You know what's funny? Interviewing is the same way, dude. I honestly, the rest of the day, I'll just be thinking about you.
Yeah, just
After this interview.
No, I think I do.
It's the same thing.
I take pictures of the tattoo and I'll go home. I'll take a shitload of pictures. And then I go home and I start looking through the pictures and I'm like, man, that guy's a cool guy. And I think that's part of like during the tattoo process, like goes back to your question before about learning more about like being different, about talking to people. Like they trauma dump on you and they tell a lot about your life. And I'll think and be like, man, that guy's going through so much in his life. Like, wonder what he's going to do now that he doesn't have, like come and get tattooed or like, and like I had somebody that was going through some major shit and they used to come and talk to me about it a lot. And I was like, you have a therapist? Like you talk to your therapist? He was like, no. He's like, I actually use this tattoo section. I like to get out. And I was thinking to myself, man, I wonder what that guy does now.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Just like a random.
So that leads us into the main major question of the podcast is, how can we communicate better as human beings? And the thing that comes up the most so far in the interviews, which is interesting, is what you're doing is listening.
Yeah.
But for you, how do you think we can communicate better with all your experience?
I have had a year. This is an interesting question for me because I've had a year of reflecting on communication. And I met someone really important in my life this year, I was introduced to, and he had a similar upbringing to mine, different, but similar, as he was alone. Like I was alone since I was 6 years old at boarding school. It's very young. And was very bad about building relationships and communication. Like you just don't learn it. You learn that from being around your parents and all that kind of stuff. I had a great upbringing, but it was just different. So I have learned that listening to what people say and being your authentic self, I feel like is the most key to the communication. Like don't bullshit people. Just say what you mean and mean what you say and make your words be valid. Like, and if I tell you something, like back it up and mean it. And I think it's really key for communication to just 1,000% be authentic. And when you're authentic, like people can't hold things against you because you were just authentically you. Like, and the other thing I think about the relation about communication is which I've learned, I have a big problem with this and I've just learned not to do this. Well, I'm trying to learn not to, is don't make your problems my problems in our communication. Like if we're communicating and we're talking and you're not understanding what I'm saying, like I can try and explain it to you and try to get you to understand it. But if you don't understand it, like one of my problems is always I want to just keep explaining it until you get it.
Yeah.
And if you're just not getting it, I have to at some point go, he's not getting it. That's on you. And that's okay.
Yep.
But that's you.
Yep.
And I've done my best to be authentic. I've done my best to communicate it, whatever it may be, to the best of my ability, honestly, make my words have meaning. And that's as much of myself as I can give to you. And if you decide that that's not enough, then that's okay. But that's yours to own. It's not mine to own. So it's like stabbing myself and expecting you to hurt. Do you know what I mean?
I do, exactly. I used to carry everybody's problems.
Oh, for sure.
And I can tell you're that way too.
I am.
You know, you just someone hurts, you hurt too.
100%.
You know, and I think it was maybe it was Stacy, that my wife, that shared this with me, that, you know, and like you said, their problems aren't your problems, and when they share them with you, you know, I play this trick in my mind where you know, it's not that I don't care and I don't want to help, but I can't emotionally attach to it because it's draining, right? So what I do now is when someone says something to me, I care because it's just part of my core.
Yeah.
But I look at it as like, your finger hurts, and I'm like, oh, your finger hurts. I'm sorry, your finger hurts, but mine doesn't. I'm sorry, but and it's that simple, like a little kid, you know.
It is.
It works, and it gets me out of into that flow, whatever they're in.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm terrible with
and
that.
And then nobody can help.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely had to learn that 1,000%, and I think that and just wanting to get my point across when somebody doesn't want to hear your point. I'm a person that wants the instant gratification. Like if we're having a conversation and you go, hey, I need a couple of days to think on this.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me.
I'm with you. Let's just go
like,
now.
Dude, let's either go in the parking lot and fight it out. Just tell me that you think I'm an asshole, or just tell me what it is. But let's squash it now.
Let's just get it done. I am with you. I am so with you.
I don't want to ruminate.
Because it's a mind game.
I don't want to ruminate on it.
Yeah.
Because
it takes up too much space.
You might go home and go, fuck him, and you might not think about it for days. Or maybe you think about it a little bit and you just need time. For me, I'm sitting on it and stewing in it. And I can't. So I think,
where do we get that, man?
I don't know. It's so frustrating.
It is. I got to see it. Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So I'm somebody, and I learned this about like relationships, like about like female relationships and just everything, like even guy relationships, everything. Like if I don't like someone, or if I'm training jujitsu, I do a lot of jujitsu. If I have a problem with somebody or whatnot, I just got to go tell them.
Yeah.
I can't look at somebody and just go, I don't like that guy. Like I just got to tell them why or what the problem is.
So I think that's great. That helps them.
Yeah. It goes back to like just being your authentic self. Like I really genuinely think, especially in this generation, people are so stuck on like a social media presence and what they want people to perceive them to be. And I trust me, I've gone down this road when I was younger as a tattooer, when I tattooed a lot of well-known people, and I wore a big diamond ring and had sick cars, and I was like, oh, I'm a fucking rock star. Like, and now I look back and go, God, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Like,
did you do Tommy Lee?
Yeah.
You tattooed Tommy Lee?
Yeah. I tattooed
what was that like?
It was cool. Like I know we have some mutual friends, and so I tattooed him. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Probably done a lot of celebrities through him, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time in the mid 90s where there wasn't a lot of tattooers, and I did do a ton of athletes, celebrities, and stuff like that, and it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
It gives you a different perspective.
Well, I don't really care now.
Exactly.
It doesn't really now. I just come in the shop. Like somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, you tattooed Tempe?" I go, "Yeah, I don't care." Like, I just want to do what I do now. Like it's a completely different deal. Like I tattooed Christian Asoy.
Yeah.
And I was more.
Did you get his dad too?
Yeah,
you did.
I did Pops as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, tattooed Pops.
That's dope.
But I wasn't stoked on him as like a celebrity. He was just somebody who was to me was like I list it because I was like,
poster was on the wall.
man, as a kid, come on. So I was just stoked to tattoo him.
I would have been too.
And I was stoked to put a piece of my art on him. And
that's there forever.
And Pops.
Yeah.
And he's pretty covered.
That's so dope.
He's pretty covered. So that's, you know what I mean?
That is so awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool.
So here's the big question I kind of throw everybody off on.
Yeah.
And it is, we're both living in the year 2025. We know our science pretty well.
Yeah.
We understand the atomic structure and the quantum field, and we're swimming in these molecules that are swimming in the quantum field. And I'm Briggs, you're Mark. We've got pure consciousness flowing through us. At your age right now, with as an individual, and as you look out and your experience, what do you think this is out here? What do you think is going on out here?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a crazy question, right? Because like, who knows the answer to that? It's such an unknown question. It's like you and I were chatting earlier about this thing we were watching, but like, it's so hard to put your head around something that you know nothing about. Like, sometimes I think we're like a speck of dirt in a backyard of like a giant, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it kind of messes with my head because I go, God, like the earth could just be like this speck of dust somewhere.
It is.
And I'm like, oh my God. And then
I know.
And you just go, I just don't know. And I think sometimes it gives me a little bit of anxiety to overthink that stuff. Like, there's times I'll lay in bed and go, God, like, is there another parallel universe to ours where there's another version of me doing exactly the same thing? Or am I just somebody? Is there another version of me doing not the same thing? And you could overthink that one like to death, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, the question is just like, I just think it's just, we are just going through the routine of doing what we do. I don't think, some people believe, I know that there's like a preconceived plan for your life and you came and like this whole thing. I don't believe that. I think you reap what you sow. And I think we grow with our knowledge. And I think as beings, we just have to, you manifest and you grow what you manifest, right? And we're just evolving creatures that just, it's like slime, like it molds, and like maybe that there's a big crack in it, and so you have to like just merge and reappear as something else. Or some people change their life careers and goals and they just change. But I think I think some people look at it as like, oh, we're like this physical being, right? Like, and this is who I am because this is who I am. Like, I'm Mark. Like,
yeah.
But really, you're just like, take the body away, and you're just a thing, like a soul to this, like just traveling through space, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're just, and I guess you just, whether there's an ending or where we end up, I think some people believe like you have like a pre-laid out life. I think I've heard plenty of people that I say, oh yeah, you're born and your life's laid out in front of you. I don't believe that. I think you create what happens, and
I'm with you.
And you kind of like mold it to where you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think, it's so hard to like know the answer. I think you just have to take it day to day and make good choices and be a good person as a being.
Yep.
But I think, and you live your life the best you can, and you treat people with dignity, and the end will come, and you will again go into the earth, and you will restart as whatever you may restart as, right?
Hey man, this was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for meeting with me.
For sure.